All right. It's been years, literally. Um, wow, 2025. What can I say? So many things. Okay. So recording had stopped both here on TikTok and even Instagram, mostly because there's a lot to process. Um, I'm gonna start bringing out some woo-woo words, but then we're bringing it, concretely grounding those because frankly it's time to get up to date, and I'm giving myself that kick in the butt too because there's certain things, hey, maybe press and replay that tape, there's certain things that I did not believe to experience in this lifetime, and now it's like, okay, well, fucking face this. What? I don't know how to. Oh, guess what? Face some more. Face some more. So, whew, wow. A lot has been going on in the aspect of like this whole ascension thing that a lot of people will bring up, and um, to ground this concept, it's basically it's as if you were to face a midlife crisis really freaking earlier. Um, it's it's kind of like that. Face your midlife crisis earlier. Good luck. Just thrown in the shark, and it's like, wait, how about it? So, what is a midlife crisis? Okay, let's bring. I'm gonna bring my definition of it. Okay, just to be clear, my definition of it. It's having lived a life that you did not know yourself in depth, and eventually a lot of things throughout the years just stack up, stack up, stack up. A lot of things that aren't necessarily looked into, felt from within, questioned, processed. It just stacks up, stacks up, stacks up. And then at one point, the stack is just so big, hey, you got to figure that shit out. Get to it. And that's what has happened. Um, like, going through art contract is one thing, yet eventually not necessarily being comfortable with that has came up, and the projects, they're chill, doing a lot of caricatures, a lot of portraits for individuals, and seeing them smile, just like those in the bus, those in the metro, that I do for free because it's fun. Yet when it comes to certain projects and contracts, eventually there came a point of feeling like it's a grind, and there was the uh-oh, because I fucking love drawing. Yet reaching this state and point where this is becoming a grind, I'm not necessarily feeling the passion, opened up the door to many other questions. Now, prior to that, like I spoke with you guys, I got into metaphysics as well. So, channeling, connecting the dots between esotericism, metaphysics, quantum physics, and the various religions. Always a fan of that because it's building bridges between us as a species, as well as understanding the core factor of all those religion, the core, or even spiritual practice. At the end of the day, they all kind of work on the same core. But it's very interesting to start to understand the different perceptions and perspectives, as well as the different practices based on that same core. Okay? And the cool part is figuring out and landing on some that you prefer versus others. And it's like, oh, okay, I prefer this. Oh, this is interesting. So that was been a lot of fun. Yet, it's still not something I'm making a living, or it's still not something I'm offering. And that was also another question to come up because there have been individuals that I've been coaching on the side, and in regards to this and various aspects of mental health. Yet that became a bit of a grind, landing mostly because landing on certain individuals that will listen, but then not practice. And then let's say a week after, or 2 weeks after, or maybe a month after, it's still the same repetition, the same loop. And then seeing that loop happen for maybe 4 or 5 sessions, it becomes a bit like, you know? So, but there still hasn't been the comfort aspect, comfortable enough to charge. You know, that has been done with friends or certain encounters or repeated encounters. Yet, there hadn't been this aspect of being comfortable enough to charge money for it. And there came the stopping point because it's like, oh, wait, hey, that time is valuable. What would I rather be doing with that time? And all of that started to stack up. Also asking, okay, so then what do you prefer? What's up? What's going on? So it's been like questions, side. And then even more update on dealing with the hashtag Caribbean parents. The hoarding is being mitigated, you know, the hoarding of material in the living space, yet a lot of habits, normalized habits, were being perceived. And it's like, ooh, okay, wow, this not necessarily okay. I know you're family, but we're gonna have to find a bridge, or we're gonna have to find a kind of middle ground. And it's just been a conglomeration of all these things. So questions had to be asked, and this is where I got both into the scariest aspect of it all, but also the most intriguing. And it was spotting when the subconscious would just tune out, depending on the subject, that would get it to relate back to a trauma in childhood or something close to a trauma. Like, okay, I have a comedy channel, hasn't been updated. What's going on? Well, I got scripts, and beginning of ideas. Yet I have noticed that as soon as I start thinking about, let's say, the end product, or even having people congratulate me on that, boom, it just pops up. And there's an emotion relating back to an old trauma. Now, I've spoken about that on TikTok, and I spoke about the multiple layers, okay? But one thing I hadn't done was noting down each and every layer, okay? That became a massive key. Just each and every layer. What does it mean? What's up? Oh, wait, one big trick for you guys, especially in regards to that: tease the conscious mind or tease the subconscious just by asking, if I knew what this layer was, or if I knew what this emotion meant, okay? Never, ever, ever stay stuck on a single word or a simple word like anxiety. Never. Please don't. Oh, I just stopped it? No. No, yeah, sorry. I accidentally did something. But never stay stuck on a word like anxiety. Those are traps. Meaning, anxiety, what is it? I am feeling uncomfortable about something. Perfect. What are you feeling uncomfortable about? You see, don't stay stuck in saying, I have anxiety. No issue. I am feeling uncomfortable about something. Okay, what are you feeling uncomfortable about? And this is how you can just kind of pull this from the subconscious mind or the conscious mind, whatever the trauma is. Okay? So that's where, you know, coming in and stacking up at least 14, 15 layers in a sense. And what became really fun was basically attacking that like a martial artist. So each layer is like, you know, up to 14. So whenever the feeling would come up, okay, you. First layer, bam. Second layer, bam. Third layer, bam. Fourth layer, bam. And then trying to visualize again to see if the emotion is still there. Because, and when I mean bam, is like countering the layer, the idea with the other perspective. So it took me a while to also get good at non-dual thinking. Thinking that both the yes and the no, or both extreme polarities, at the same time. Sort of. I mean, since we think at the speed of light and even faster when we practice the mind, again, test it out. Think about an apple right now. How fast did it pop up? Or the taste, or the smell, or the sound. You know, how fast did that pop up? Boom. So you can go faster. Now, you can, with enough practice, and it does take a certain amount of practice, you can both sort of perceive the yes and a no of an issue or both extreme polarities at the same time, or one after another, and then making sure that you keep that tempo so that eventually both options can be thought and felt. That's another big key. Felt at the exact same time. And that was a practice that, well, it took me a while. It took a while. Oh, oh, it took a while. I am laughing because once I picked up on it, I'm like, ooh, this is interesting. This is the first time. Ironically, and cool, ironically, we'll see. And in a cool way, what also fast tracked this was having the realization that the hashtag Caribbean Parent is the only individual so far that had me laughing out of the absurdity of behaviors, but also crying at the tragedy of it at the exact same time. And I felt like, what the fuck is going on? You know, because I'm like, what's going on? How? Never had that before. What's going on? So, it was funky. I'll get back to that. I'll try to remember that. So, but yes, in order to tackle on those blockers, basically, okay, the issue or the trauma itself, always validated. It's valid, or the layer of the trauma is valid, so validated. But then also say that, hey, it is one polarity of two. They are both valid, they both exist. Ooh, the yes and the no option both exist. You see, I've noticed for some reason, like, I'll talk for myself, but I've noticed it in public, but I'm not going to overgeneralize because I know some of you people are bosses and already got this mastered. Yet, I've noticed this tendency for the mind to choose yes or a no, and that's it. But the thing is, both options exist at the exact same time. So it would make no sense to pick one option and invalidate the other as if it's non-existent. They're both valid with different nuances. And that is something that is not necessarily brought to light in our education system, in our religious system, in our fucking media. You know, remember the basic bitch main character mentality, BBMM, coined phrase, signed. Seriously, yeah, like whether it's fiction, media, video games, movies, TV shows, whatever, your main character will always stay at surface level because that's the only way our physical apparatus. Well, okay, that's the limitation of the writing, I should say. Our physical apparatus can perceive non-duality and can work with it, but in our fiction, it would be very, very tricky to handle. It's kind of like a book. As an example, yes and no at the same time, different nuances. It would be like having a table split and both columns are to be felt and understood logically at the same time. If it is done in this format, it can be understood. Yet in our fiction, in our writing, it is one sentence after another. Oftentimes, you're going from one emotion to another. Yet in certain concepts, it would be much more preferable to feel two paragraphs or two sentences at the same time. This is the practice that had to be mastered over time, which helped with the realization of what was up with the hashtag Caribbean parent. It's all linked. It's all linked because then, in regards to that, multiple behaviors experienced during childhood that were normalized eventually came out. Not enoughness, devalued. What was some of the other ones? Oh yeah, if you like yourself, you're gonna make people jealous. You better not do that. Other people's success mean that you fail. That's kind of a messed up way school messes with you, huh? Should have done it earlier. Makes no sense. The damn it if you do, damn it if you don't. That was a big one. That was horrible. Horrible. Oh my. Oh my. This kind of how do I say this without throwing anyone under the bus? I had a falling out with a friend online because of a damn it if you do, damn it if you don't scenario. That was way before being able to spot that trauma. Yet as soon as that friend kind of set me up in that scenario, I was just no. Automatically there was this rage boiling inside. Because it's damn it if you do it, damn it if you don't. It's a no-win scenario. It just freezes up the mind. Oh man. Yeah. And unfortunately that person doesn't necessarily know how they got to that or how they made it work. They didn't necessarily inquire more. And unfortunately it was a bit of a trap of the language, which I'll try to explain because that's a big thing to kind of beware. The more and more I'm looking at that, the more I'm like, wow, language. The basic ass language we're being brought in our media, in our fiction, in our movies, in our games is like, oh yeah, beware, careful. Language is spellcasting. Seriously. Consider that just with a specific organization of word, a sentence, I can have you reacting a certain way. I can have you perceive life a certain way. Knowledge is power. But words are too. So that, like, wow. And of course, a lot that happens with the trauma is the words, the sentences, the descriptions are taken literally without necessarily having a context or the other person's context for saying and perceiving that way. So, especially in cultural households, hashtag Caribbean parents, old school Caribbean parents, I should say, it's changing. New generation, kicking it up. But especially in those households, there was a lot of physical and psychological abuse. A lot of things were said, but were not understood that the child mind will take it literally because it is the sponge stage. Basically gathering and collecting data, collecting information. And that beginning, that starting information is then normalized. Those behaviors are then normalized. Yet funny enough, I always felt something was off. Like I told you, when it came to that religion thing, I'm like, yo, why are you people repeating and doing this all the time? Just act like Jesus and go along, right? But again, that was not necessarily understood. Maybe I said it before, but now I kind of understand the brutalization that they've received. Now, this is not to excuse. Please, whoever uses that term or has the habit to use that term, slap. No. Wow. Slap. No, that's just my resentment. No, it's not an aspect of excuse. It is an aspect of comprehension so that it is not repeated. Okay? It is understood via comprehension, yet it is not condoned. Thus, not repeated. And not saying, yeah, you do that. Like, no, there's been a couple of times where I wanted to step up on some of these parents because of the way they were verbally abusing their child in the bus. And I'm like, the I didn't step up because I didn't find a way to control myself, you know? Oh man. So it's funky. It's just being able to have being able to understand the brutalization that they've had. Again, they had to deal with much more. Well, they didn't just have to deal with the belt. They had to deal with a wooden stick and various other shit, especially in the old country. Then that very same treatment was in their school. You know, you get the wrong answer, whap. And that was said and done by individuals saying that they were praying to the Almighty, right? The sisters, the nuns, you know, they're sorry because they passed away, and in that state, it's a whole different deal. As well as an understanding of the lifelong repercussions that were done. Because if I put any kind of pressure, anxiety, discomfort in your learning, after enough repetition, your nervous system links up learning with that. And that can be terrible in the long run. So, wait, the power of repetition. And now you kind of understand why indirectly they passed it on to the younger generation, you know? So, again, this is what they've held. And coming to a point of understanding that with this kind of teaching methods, they were never necessarily taught to feel valued. Which is why oftentimes, because of our good old advertisement system, we are taught that your value is your possession, it's your credential, it's your career. All of that is horse crap, per se. Your value, your experience, your life, everything that you lived, every connecting of the dots that you've done, your unique aspects and your unique traits that no one will ever repeat and copy. It'll never be exact. It'll never be an exact copy. Again, pop up the analogy of everyone has a favorite chocolate cake. It's all unique and different because you have different context, a different year, a different time, a different bakery, a different progression of all of this up to now. So it's the same thing for your life experience and anything that you touch. All right? So realizing that, the whole not enoughness, it's gone. Fuck that. I already had a video on that on TikTok, by the way. And it was just being able to repeat as soon as the emotion comes up. One more time. Oh, pops up. You know? And then day after day after day while being patient. One of the things was just being quite impatient about it. I'm like, I want it now. Why is this still here? And again, it took me a while to apply non-duality to that too. It's frustrating and it's not. There's a reason for it and it's nonsensical as well. You know, there's a reason, a purpose for it, but at the same time, it could just be nonsense from the trauma, from the subconscious. So that actually helped out a lot because then I started asking, okay, well, all of these events are happening for a reason, and to the degree that I can remain open to that reason, things will go smoother and smoother. It's accepting, letting go, and I don't necessarily like the word surrender. I don't know, for me it implies war. It implies a battle. I'd rather go with acceptance and waiting for the right timing in that specific case. Not too fond of that word surrender, but it's a popular word in the spiritual circles. Just not fond of that. Maybe it's the gamer mind. Surrender means game over. Wow. So, that's been a lot. Um, what else? What else? What else? What else? I said I was gonna come back to okay, there we go. When it comes to Shy Caribbean Parent, one thing that I had noticed is, and this goes back to the inner child, and it's so funky now that I realize this is like I'm talking about deep layer, something that I wasn't necessarily able to be perceived before, and it's the aspect of like feeling the feeling of having personal value. And I had not even asked a question or even perceived, or even at times where like I would talk to someone or even give them a drawing and the individual would say that made my day. The subconscious just, and you see like just stoic, like, and there was not necessarily an understanding about that until I just kind of went, are you devaluing the other person's comment? And I'm like, I would not want to do so. Okay, you don't want to do so, yet by not necessarily acknowledging or feeling it, you're kind of doing so. And I was like, huh, does that remind you somewhat? Yeah. Does that remind you someone? And it's like, oh, that's how it's transferred in a way. And like at that point, it was just, okay, well, man, called out, called out. Uh, it took a while because I never really had processed that. I never really had asked, okay, well, how would I feel upon receiving a positive comment? Never really asked, never really processed it. Again, this is part of that pile. Okay? There's a lot more things that were in that pile. This may seem simple to certain individuals, and at that point, whap! No, another slap. I'll stop slapping. Energetical slap of light. Wake up! Not everyone has the same experience. Not everyone's living the same life. Ooh, that was a big learning experience of just like, yeah, it's true. And I can't, this is why I'm kind of making jokes about the whole light slap, because I can't assume that you would understand that if you don't. You see how that potentially loop itself? So I can't assume, thus I can't call you any word or say, oh my god, you're such an insensitive person. It's like, no, if you never really consciously understood that, ain't your fault. You know, it's not like we beat me up. Everyone has the same kind of knowledge. No, different context. And this has been one heck of a learning curve. Because what kind of language are you given on television? Passive aggressive? Assumptions? Break down the sentence structure and you're gonna key in on that. Alright? It's really funky. It's so much fun. Once you get that, it's like, And of course, that all kind of reinforces your mental diet. I'm not saying cut off all your fiction. Just be aware of what goes on within it, and also take breaks. Potentially more than you think. Mostly because, again, speed of light. No plateau for how far you can push that speed. There's no plateau, there's no peak. You will constantly get better and better and better at it. It'll constantly go faster. It's not just dual processing a yes and a no at the same time. It's multi-processing multiple subjects while interconnecting the dots and all being able to feel all of that at the exact same moment. It's really funky. It's really cool. But you are not led to think like that on a daily basis, because most of your distractions are bound by the limitation of your eyes, your ears, yeah, your physical apparatus, while your mind itself can go much faster. Okay? So, wow, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. But it's all manageable because we're able to handle so much more than we can think. And that was a great learning experience. It's like, wow. It's like, even now, walking in the bus, in the mall, or in the metro, or in the subway, metro, subway, same thing. Welcome, Canada. Um, so walking there, it just feels like everyone's in slow motion. And I'm not talking about the cell phone walkers or the, yeah, like, no, it just feels like everyone's in slow motion and I'm just bobbing and weaving. It's really interesting. Huh. I'm also noticing how much our devices and our modern day living has got us to have less movement of the physical body. Like, there's, how often do you find yourself doing this kind of movement? How often do you find yourself doing these kind of movements, right? So again, going back with the fear that I've had for a couple of years, school was the first big banger in regards to removing 70% of our movements, because for that amount of time compared to prior, we were not led to moving that much. You know, you sit down, you listen to that one directional aspect. Maybe I should make an updated video about the whole school system. Um, but yeah, like right there, for that amount, for that huge amount of time, your mobility is cut off completely, and that is not natural in our species. Not natural at all. Then, hey, go to college, same deal. Go to work, depending on your work, you're going to be repeating a specific kind of movements or a specific set of movements. But it's not the entirety of the body getting a workout and remaining limber. And that's a issue that you could deal with in long term if you're not necessarily getting into this practice now. So, like, getting into the pace of like adding rotations to your day. You know, you're, even if you're sitting down, okay, let me add some rotations, let me add this. It's just kind of getting a pulse. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Getting a pulse for your body. How does it feel? Where does it go? How, you know, you just kind of get a pulse. Ooh, there's a bit of stiffness here. Okay, how do I extend it to a point, or extend my body, or move it to a point where I will relieve that stiffness, you know? Or what can I repeat on a continuous base to relieve that stiffness? Because yeah, if you guys have been noticing the wobble leg type of deal, that was the freaking isolation. A lot of people remain sitting down. You know, Zoom conferences, working at distance, the whole sitting down, not good for our body. A lot of things that weren't necessarily brought to our attention. And I'm like, wow, I'm calling foul on this. And this thing goes, you know, okay. Media and television and our fiction, I'm calling foul on that. I'm calling foul on that completely. There are certain individuals, there are certain organizations that understood the psychological influences of imageries and specific word patterns. Okay? We know about neurolinguistic programming for like years. Propaganda is another thing, but let's just go with neurolinguistic programming, which is basically the repetitions of certain words to install a perception in the subconscious via repetition, repetition, repetition. All right? That, I'm calling foul on that, because a lot of it is being done unconsensually. It's again unconsensual hypnosis. And I'm taking the time to balance my words on this, because I also am not immune to that, to being called out, because I might have gotten some of that language. Okay, I totally did get that language in my subconscious. This is how I learned English, watching television and playing video games, and then getting the base afterward. But a lot of it was phonetic. Yet, once I started to break, yeah, years later, once I started to break down the words, the insinuation, the assumption, insinuation, the assumptions as well that some of those terminologies would bring, then I'm like, whoa, wait, huh. Just like anxiety. Look at, again, as an example, anxiety. I'm feeling anxiety. Okay, wait. You're feeling discomfort about what? What is making you feel discomfort? You see, you start pressing the question, more information comes out. You stick to a surface level word. Okay, I have anxiety. This is my label. This is my label. This is my identity. I have anxiety. I am anxiety. You see, there's a lot of that's been like just subtly implemented. Um, I'm not pinning the blame on artists and creators. Okay, a lot of it is being done to catch trends. Yet the double-edged sword of that, because everything has a positive and a negative, okay? And it's all a double-edged sword. The negative edge of that double-edged sword is the fact that the repetition of that surface level language leads you to perceive the world, including yourself, at a surface level, simply due to the limitation of the medium and the need to chase for trends. But you are not surface level. You are so much better than any basic bitch main character mentality scripts that are being thrown at you. Because for characters, they need to take a full season or two to get a specific lesson. You think at the speed of light. Your episode is done in the matter of a single minute or two. And you can already lead yourself through multiple storytelling beats in your mind's eye or quote unquote imagination. I'm saying quote unquote because there's so much more to what's happening in there than just the surface level word and definition that we were given, imagination. Still, in your imagination, in a single or 2 minutes, you can go through multiple story points and even feel them to a point where you get a resolution at the end of that second minute. And believe me, you're done with that resolution. You can have a repeat of it or a variation of it, maybe 2 minutes after, so that makes 4 minutes. You may have a repeat of it the next hour just to anchor it in your subconscious, and you'll have integrated it. Wow. Season's done. Took an hour. 1 episode. Huh. Amazing. But yeah, you see how simple it is, right? But a character, oh no, I'm not gonna get this. Oh God, I'm struggling. I'm not enough. Oh, I should have done this. Oh no. Bunch of... It's for entertainment purposes, and it's a limitation of the medium. But honestly, it does not reflect where you are at, or where we collectively are at as a species. So, take care of your mental diet in regards to that. And, make your own scripts, honestly. Okay. I'm going off to the side. Wow. What else? Dreams have been getting quite interesting. Maybe I'll make a video on that. Some of the dreams that were really marking. Did I even record them in a dream journal? Or maybe I forgot to do that. Or I might have recorded them in audio. Yeah. Some of them I kept up in the audios. So I'll have to go back to my archive. Or maybe not. That's also been one of those reasons where video making has kind of been like iffy. There's an aspect of like collecting knowledge. Like I often record during the day. Things that kind of come up and that I want to balance later. And when it comes to those audio logs, I listen to them throughout the week so I can catch up with my current train of thought and the things that I'm working on. Yet one idea was basically, if let's say something I feel could help other people comes up, instead of recording it only audio, I might as well just TikTok video, boom, done. That's it. Uh, because the TikTok is mostly going to be for that aspect of these kind of videos, short bursts. And I say short bursts, it might even go to 10 minutes, depending on the subject. Because we ain't basic. This whole fast food of thinking, the 1 minute thing, it doesn't break down complexity and nuance, which is where the juice of things are. Similar to you. If we go into the complexity of nuance of your person and what you love and what you prefer, you're not saying, I like rock and roll. Okay, what kind of rock? What kind of variation? Top 5 artists that you like. And for each and every single one of them, how do they make you feel? What about some of their work makes you feel that way? What's inspiring to you? See, there's some complexity and nuance. It ain't some basic ass Facebook profile. Seriously. So, this gets to be fun to try and break down on TikTok within 10 minutes. But yeah, that's mostly the repertoire. The repertoire. I have another word in mind. The place where you just put that so yeah, TikTok, the Rom HQ _tick. Makes me tick. So we'll see. I'll get back to that too. I'm like, if there's anything that just pops up, just press record. That's it. That's all. Getting rid of perfectionism was a big thing. Biggest tip in regards to that is simply acknowledge you'll never get it done. You'll never get it wrong. Stop comparing, because again, that's not necessarily understanding the context of the other artist to have gotten to that point. So again, with the whole school mentality, school, because in school you were compared to other students based on an aspect of 100, a mark of 100. Yet we all learn differently. We all have different preferences. We all have different ways of learning as well. So that mindset, after enough repetition, gets into the subconscious, and it's like, oh, this is normal. No, it ain't. Stop comparing. Just stop. Also, use the power of relativity. If you're inspired by something else, instead of letting the mind go into jealousy mode or comparison mode, you just go, hey, you find something interesting in this? What is it? In relativity to what I've just created. How do I bridge that? What do I want? What does it make me feel that I want to integrate in my own work? You see, you start asking multiple questions whenever that emotion comes up, because you're like, didn't have that before school. Didn't have that around birth point. What's going on? Again, with a tiny, tiny grain of salt in regards to past life. I'm opening up that bucket at one point. At one point, because it's about time to get up to date with the esoteric stuff. In a grounded way, making sure to say that there are certain subjects, again, like past lives or crystals or some other subject, that are relevant for certain individuals and may not be relevant for others, which is completely fine. Because that's life. We all have different preferences and different favorite chocolate cakes. So, it's interesting. It's really fascinating. Oh my god, I want to open up that box, because it's like all of it is reflections of consciousness, but if I open up that box, this is going a tad bit too far. For now. There's going to be a point. But for now, we just gotta leave it at that. Well. So, overall, the subconscious does its best, but is often stuck in fight or flight. depending on the childhood traumas. Um, do your best to have your subconscious be your best friend. So do that inner work is your key. Seriously asking those questions. Why do I feel this way? Why do I perceive it this way? And just pull the wire. Pull the wire. Just keep pulling the wire in a neutral way. Never judge yourself because you weren't born with that habit anyway. Do not judge and condemn for something that you picked up being not being aware of where it would lead you. You know, what you picked up non-consensually, not necessarily knowing where it would lead you. But then understand that the utter polarity of perception, option, feeling exists. And then you can start challenging the subconscious to say, hey, whatever you have lived and perceived that in childhood is completely and entirely valid based on the data that you had at that point. The knowing, the descriptions, the definitions. Completely valid. Now you know there's another perspective or another extreme option of perspective, because there's a whole gray area. Let us look at that. Let us be a bit more complete and look at that now. Okay? And then it becomes so much easier to start pedaling. Okay? Because both options exist. This is the biggest key I can leave you on. Consider the yes and the no exist. There's different nuances, but both options exist. Choosing one does not deny the other or deny the existence of the other. Both have to be accepted and balanced appropriately with their nuances. Okay? It takes a while for the mind to wrap that up because our BBMM media doesn't necessarily bring that. And at the same time, we are also dealing with the trends and the limitation of physical media and also the limitations of our physical apparatus, because I would need to blast two sentences being heard at the same time in a moment. You know, one sentence after another is the limitation of what we got. For now, we'll see. We'll see. I'm like, okay, yo, we're already dealing with AI. Let's go. Let's go 2025. Let's go see what else is going to be there. Oh, well. So, asking those questions. Go deep with the questions. And note, have a journal. Journaling has been a big key. Quite a big key in regards to all of that. What else? Trying to see. There's a lot. It's just a lot to try to break down. It's like trying to resume an entire year in a segment. It's like, nah. I can just tell you the core. A lot of inner work, inner questions, especially in regards to the contracts. Breaking down that blocker has been a relief. Especially not necessarily having had definitions of value aside from what's been programmed onto us, and yeah, noticing the toxic behaviors inside the culture, understanding why it was brought to that point or what has led to that point, and also doing more efforts to break out of labels. Whether it is country, whether it is race, whether it is sex, like just breaking away from labels so that I can access information in a much more organic way. Not having boxes of label filtering the information and the processes, the understandings that come with those information. That's been quite interesting. It's also helping looking at individuals without those colored lenses that we were brought to. So, one heck of a challenge. There's a reason why I don't necessarily watch as much media as before. And the same goes for video games. I'll have my time with Street Fighter and other fighting games, But when it comes to full narratives and all that, whew, no, 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 just no, not anymore. Unless something really big and special gets me, and even then, I still see that we are brought, and this is due to the limitation of the medium. So, again, I am not bashing the creators, it's just the limitations of the medium and the format, but we are brought to normalize attacking other beings because of labels. Again, it's a limitation of the scenario, but I want you to understand that everything that is repeated enough time, even if it's a movie, even if it's a video game, doesn't matter. Your subconscious eats via repetition, okay? After the early sponge ages, 0 to 7, 0 to 9, repetition becomes the way the subconscious gets anchored. So our dialogue, our perceptions, our thematics in movies, TV shows, and video games, conflict, 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 conflict. You're not seeing the other person as a human being. You're seeing them as a role, a stereotype. You have done this. You are an enemy. You must be defeated. Yeah, no. Nope. Nope. Once you start understanding the depth of context by going into your own context to get rid of some of those traumas, you're then able to understand how another individual, quote unquote, enemy can act that way. It just becomes like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see. Okay. Doesn't necessarily make that you do not condone the actions. You're just more in an aspect of, let's talk, stand down. Open for discussion, open for mediation. You know? So that's been like, whew, wow. Funky. Really, really funky. I might try to check out certain games, Japanese games, just because it's not. The fact that I'm forced to read subtitles in that language. One, I do want to learn Japanese, so that's one. But two, the perceptions, the stereotypes, all of that takes a bit longer because at least the language barrier doesn't automatically implement it in the subconscious. Because it's a familiar language, thus the perception is automatically ingested. Yeah. Wow. Whew, what a ride, what a ride, what a ride. It's actually a lot of fun to be able to understand this now, and the progress to unlocking whatever's blocking that trauma on a consistent base is practically near point. Like, maybe I'm trying to see how I can kind of gauge it, or maybe I just have to be patient, or even more patient, which is what I'm gonna bring up. But the excitement that I have every time I think about those projects, that's what gets me. It's like some of it is just so much fun to think about, and I want to keep that soup stewing for a bit. While at the same time, working on some more stuff for you guys, because, yeah, okay. I took these abilities for granted, per se. It's not necessarily the right terminology, because that would be assuming that I knew how valuable those abilities are and how they help individuals, and then said, meh. Versus understanding that there's goddamn subconscious blocker. Piece of shit. Like, there's a lot of okay, for those who haven't been in hashtag Caribbean households, there's a lot of normalization of devaluing. You know, putting value on objects instead of the individual, and that over time, repetition, repetition, repetition. Early sponge environment, boom in the subconscious, and it's like, okay, I may have had one big opening of the heart in regards to that, but it doesn't mean that it's staying there permanently. I have to override the years of repetition. That's one method. Another method would be, if I had one big ass spiritual reawakening. I'm making some Solo Leveling references, but it would be reawakening. Because I already have one spiritual awakening, and that would be like a second one. Some people have multiple. Maybe we can call those epiphanies, like big ass, like oh wow, you know, like revelations. I don't know how you call it. Like, we'll keep it to that. If I had a second one in regards to that, or a third one stacked on top, maybe it would just permanently leave it in the subconscious. It's either repetition or high emotions that would imprint the subconscious, from what I can gather from my own experiences and also what I've read. So, game on. Yeah, now I'm trying to see, okay, what else do I want to bring? I'm done. Okay. Thank you for your patience, for your comments, for your own work that you're doing, for your helping of other people after clearing your issues and able to explain to other individuals that may be facing something similar. And yeah, I'll just try and update more and more, and you'll notice if one massive ass breakthrough happens, you'll notice. But I'll try to get into more technical details next time. This was basically just what's been happening, what's going on, where is everything at. This is still continuing, yet there's going to be a balance part. Also, I have gone better at looking at the camera, knowing it's here, instead of looking at the screen. Yo, that is so nuts. Once you notice those little nuances, it's like, yeah, it makes a whole difference. Maybe I should just shove this here. Nope, cell phone's gonna fall. We'll see. Get used to look at the black bar. Have fun. Kick some ass. Be playful. It's not to be too serious with this whole awakening and ascension. Be playful, be whimsical, back and forth, infinity symbols, yes and a no, both interlacing at the same time. That's a great imagery to have and a great practice to have. Next time I'll get deeper with channeling, or I'll try to bring some channeling here. I'm like, you know what, F it. If people are not down and up to date with the whole channeling thing, then they can get on the boat or have fun looking at something else. We're at a point where it's like, you have the choice to choose what kind of content you want to watch and you want to ingest. You are at the helm. Which I had to learn. Instead of going on videos and going, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be acting this way. Oh my god, I didn't like this video. And it's like, well, you had a choice. You just click the next channel. Use your affirmative action. Affirmative action? You are affirming by doing this action? Anyway, I'm just playing there. Alright? In the meantime, all of you, kick some asses, have some fun, and we'll see soon. Much more update. 2025, let's kick some butts. Or even more. In the metaphysical aspect. In the growth. In the unity. For light. Said with that tone. For light. Alright guys, have a terrific one.